Welcome to this week's Fit for Purpose. This week I'm really delighted to be joined by Cooper CBE. He's Chief Exec at Aldermore Bank. It's an award-winning bank that's got a really distinct purpose that really pushes social mobility. So we'll be hearing more from Stephen shortly, but it's really timely as well because the bank's about to launch its second annual report to society. The first one was back in 2022 and its follow-up report for 2023 provides some real insight into Aldermore's impact, but also that deep dive into the bank's purpose and strategy. Stephen, brilliant to have you doing the podcast. I think maybe for people who are less familiar with Aldermore, tell us a little bit about Aldermore's purpose, the strategy, and then we can come on to talk about the report to society that you're launching.
Yeah, Justin, thank you for having me, as always. Aldermore is a multi-specialist lending and savings bank, and our purpose, it's stated, is to back people and businesses to go for it in life. And what we really do is we support those individuals and businesses who others do not. So, for example, we often help people get a home for the first time. That doesn't mean we are giving loans or mortgages to people who can't afford it. They can afford it, but they have unique circumstances that get overlooked by mainstream. Similarly with businesses, we help them to expand, create jobs, or transition from old economy, old climate to new. So that's our purpose. It's what attracted me to the business, and it's undoubtedly what enables us to attract and retain great talent.
And I thought it was interesting, if you go on your website, it talks about a bank that wants to back you to achieve more. And it, as part of that, it says, it's supporting exceptions to the rule. And I think it's quite interesting how, in a sense, you're recognizing that not everyone fits that almost cookie cutter approach to be able to get credit and finance. And yet, whether you're an individual or a business, is actually crucial to be able to getting on with life and realizing ambitions that you've got.
Yes, and to your point, everyone's circumstances are different. So we look beyond just a credit rating or what the computer says, yes or no. We always apply a human lens to look at it. That we focus hard on the ability for the individual or the business to afford the borrowing they are taking on, particularly if interest rates may or may not change through time. So our bad debt levels at the moment are pretty low. We are not seeing much change despite the much tougher environment. It's not just about lending, it's helping people to save for the first time. So very simple products, easy to understand terms and conditions, rates that are highly competitive. We've just launched, for example, a new regular savings account, trying to encourage people to save on a regular basis, to have a financial cushion behind them. Many of those people haven't saved on a regular basis before. But it's a very simple product. It enables people to have access to the money should they need it without penalty. And that's really important to what we do.
And in terms of this next report to society that you're just publishing, tell us a little bit about almost how you see the world having changed since the first one that came out back in 2022.
Yeah, I mean, the purpose of the report really is to show to our stakeholders, who are multiple different people from different backgrounds or different needs in society, that we are a business. We're a successful business, we're a growing business, we're a profitable business, but it's not just for the sake of making profit for a shareholder. It's about how we contribute to society. So it's what we do, and probably even more importantly, how we do it. As we're trying to be transparent and open about that and holding ourselves to account as to how we do that better, back on that as to what we do differently. But the macro environment, fundamentally different. So interest rates dramatically higher than they were 12, 18 months ago. Cost of living, which was maybe starting to increase for many people 12, 18 months ago, really is now super hard for many. I mean, no matter how much you earn or money behind you, if you have a loan or a mortgage, you are experiencing much higher for most people cost of that. Food inflation, I mean, thankfully inflation itself is starting to come down, and I've just noticed my own gas bill come down dramatically, actually, but it's only gone back to a little bit higher than where it was 18 months ago. But food inflation is still really high. So the ability for people to afford an okay lifestyle is much harder than it was. Similarly for businesses, they're grappling with costs of interest if they are borrowing or wanting to invest in the business much higher than they've had before. And the cost of operating the business is much higher. So the macro environment is much harder for a lot more people now.
And what's that meant for Aldermore in terms of the business you are and the products you already offer and how they've had to adapt over time? How have you found that shift in what is quite a profound change in the economic climate for a bank, for your customers?
Yeah, so we've done a lot of the products. We've thought about how we make it more affordable for people. We've put solutions in place for a relatively small number of businesses and consumers who have changed their repayments, for example, from capital to interest only. That's not viable long term, but it does help in the short term. Thankfully, we have very few people who need that help, but it's there for those who do. We've done thousands of outreach calls to customers who we can see from some of the data and so forth that maybe signs of stress, financial stress in their lives. Just help them to think about how they might budget differently, what support we can give. Sometimes just talking to someone helps. That they realise they're not alone. They're going through this time with many, many other people, and that there are people out there like us, amongst others, who can offer help and support and guidance. So we've done a lot of that. I mean, there are several thousand calls we've done. At the same time, we're doing that internally. I mean, we've got colleagues who are also struggling with their cost of living that is increasing. We've increased our sort of salaries to lower paid colleagues. And we've got a small hardship fund for those who are really struggling. I don't know who those people are. We keep it anonymous. We have a little team in place who do that. But we're taking some of that learned from our own colleagues and applying that to our customer base and vice versa.
And one of the things that you've always done, and I think it in a sense ties back to your wider role that you had as co-chair of the Social Mobility Commission, is to really fuse that purpose you had in that role into Aldermore. I mean, it really, really runs through it. So it's probably a good time to dig into what that does mean for you, that focus on social mobility, both internally with your own opportunities and the staff you just talked about, but also externally on some of those products that you're offering to people.
So I think, with my own background, I feel, as you know, very strongly about the circumstance of your birth should not dictate the outcomes in your life. That should be down to personal choice and informed choice. And that's at the heart of the purpose of Aldermore, what attracted me to the organisation. And I've changed many things since joining Aldermore. The one thing I haven't changed, we tweaked the word slightly, is the purpose statement I mentioned. And the reason I didn't change it, one is it resonated. Two is we have amazingly high customer satisfaction scores because of, generally speaking, what we do and how we do it. I'll come back to that in a second. But I was really struck by how much it enabled us to attract really good talent, to a certain extent, punching above our weight in terms of what we do. And it's that talent that drives those high customer satisfaction scores. I listen to the conversations with customers who we are helping where others do not, or reaching out to, are you okay? How can we help you? Are things tight? What can we do to help you? They are great conversations. When you go home at night, you feel good about that. And that translates into what we do around our products, which are very simple, very transparent, easy to understand, no gotchas or anything like that, both on the lending side and on the savings side. And that's definitely helped us to attract and grow our customer base and market share over the past 12, 24 months. And linked to that, we then look at how we open up to our talent. So we have three strands of activity. One is an apprenticeship scheme. Reaching to all parts of society, often those who haven't had the chance or the ability or desire in some cases to go on to university. So taking people from school age into the workplace, a structured apprenticeship scheme. Johnny, who you know well here, he's made it a mission to spend every pound of our apprenticeship levy in a good way.
And Johnny Carberry's your essentially your head of talent, isn't he? I guess
and he does a fabulous job. He's a teacher by profession, so he understands it, and he leads some amazing outreach programs into local schools where we have our operations to help think about financial education. I mean, he's won awards for that for the organisation, but the passion and energy that he brings to that is just tremendous. Our apprenticeship scheme are very proud of that, and we've got components linked to that, such as black interns. By the way, we've offered half of those permanent jobs because they are superb, and we're really excited about that. And the other element which I like probably more than anything is, like every business, we have to think about how we become more efficient, more effective. We are automation into business. That means some roles are being done by people, manual activity aren't there anymore. And this year we've just taken a program to take 10 people from that kind of activity, and we are going to retrain them to do technology roles. So very excited to see how that will play out as well. But that's an example just of what we are doing internally around sort of transition around technology, automation. Jobs will change, and we're helping people to change their careers as a result.
And how have they responded to that? This opening up of a potentially really different career ahead of them.
So we talked about it a lot on sort of road shows through the business, and we said let's try 10 places to start with and open it up to people to apply. We had more than 10 people apply, which is a good thing, and we whittled that down through a number of interviews and so forth to 10. They are super excited about that. We're very excited about what that might turn into. Frankly, we will learn. These are real jobs. These are jobs that are transitioning from an old way of doing things to a more modern ways of doing things. We will learn from that, take those learnings and apply it both internally but also externally to our customers.
And I suppose that then ties back to the offering of products, because actually for people who just implicitly get that social mobility journey because it's often been part of their own life, you're better placed as a bank to be able to shape products for people who are outside the organisation but wanting and interested in the products that you can then offer. So it's a win-win, really, isn't it?
It is. And so the products we develop with our customers, we always have a human over sort of looking at it. It's not a computer says yes or no. We understand the individual circumstances of those who either borrow from us or save with us. The nature of the product, which is simple, easy to understand and consistent, no big changes up or down, that really helps people to feel confident about the services and products they have with us, that they know that we will always make it a fair deal for them. So they're responding well to that. That's very much the way we think about things. I mean, in the industry, the regulators brought in something called consumer duty. Look, that's been good for us. We've taken a good hard look at ourselves. Given what we do, we haven't had to sort of change much, but just in our motor finance business, we've reached out to the hundreds of dealerships that we do with helping them to think more about that. And that's extended into stronger relationships with us. So how we do business is really, really important.
And I think what that new consumer duty did was to take an existing standard level and raise it. And it basically said you have to put consumers' needs first, and they need to be treated fairly. And I guess for Aldermore, that very much tied into that mission on financial inclusion anyway. And I think what's interesting about all the social mobility work that you're doing is it potentially shows where the next step up might go for the sector in a broader regulatory environment, which is not just to put needs first, but actually to overtly seek to improve outcomes and circumstances. And I think, that pretty much is the Aldermore purpose when you break it down.
Yeah, it is. I mean, just you mentioned sort of inclusion. One of the things I'm conscious of, if you just take our mortgage business, we help people often get a home for the first time. The reason they're not with a mainstream bank is their credit rating is slightly impaired. That doesn't mean they are bad risk or bad credit. Far from it. As I mentioned earlier, our default rates are very, very, very low. I'm constantly surprised at how low they are. But there's usually a reason behind their impaired credit rating. It might be they've got more than one job. Many people do. So therefore, there's two sources of income or three sources of income in some cases, and a computer can't compute that elsewhere, or they've gone through maybe a separation or a bereavement, or they have lost their job, or they're transitioning from an old style sort of employment to a new one. We find that about 90% of those over the lifespan of the mortgage with us, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, their credit rating has sufficiently improved that they can qualify for a mortgage pretty much anywhere. Now, we work hard to then retain them, but that's our purpose, is helping people to get on in a more stable footing financially, much like it is in the savings side, which is simple product, encourages and incentivizes regular savings that offers a decent rate of return, but constantly helps people to £10 a month, £20 a month, £50, whatever. We have people who obviously save a lot more than that with us as well, but it's not looking after one part of society more than another. We're inclusive to all, and we learn from all.
And steadily improving circumstances. And if you go back to that report for society, which are the bits of it, Stephen, that you almost feel most proud of? I mean, there's a whole range of activities that Aldermore has, because it runs through the whole business. Where would you sort of maybe particularly point to where you thought, actually, I'm really, really proud of that area?
It's probably, I mean, that'd be difficult. I struggle to get to one. If there is one, I've read the report now 3 times. It's quite big, actually. It's a very nice 1 or 2 pages somewhere at the beginning. But I think that's probably, in essence, what I'm most proud about. There's a lot of stuff in there.
Yeah, it's comprehensive.
Not one thing, because actually, I don't think you can just do one thing. A business is multifaceted with multiple stakeholders. And we've tried to think about, what's our role in society. I make no apology. We are very profitable. I have to be profitable. If I don't generate profit, I can't reinvest that back into the business to create more jobs, grow our business, lend more money. If we're not financially stable, we don't attract people to put their deposits with us and put that to good use. I have to attract good talent. I invest in developing talent, and so forth. So it's multifaceted, and we are helping people like landlords to improve their properties, to make them more prime efficient. We are helping businesses to do that. We've funded, for example, low carbon housing projects. No doubt people will say to us, well, you're number 3 in the UK for provision of finance for used vehicles. Yes, we are. People need to be mobile to move themselves, families or goods around the UK, particularly more rural parts of the UK. We are helping people to think about how you transition to better quality vehicles, EV, the infrastructure around that. But that's a slow transition. In the meantime, people do need help with that. So it's multifaceted, and I'm probably most proud of the fact that we are trying our best to make sure that our impact in society, our impact on climate, is as balanced as we can make it.
And I think the final area I really wanted to pick up on is the work that you've done on tracking socioeconomic background, which is really groundbreaking. And this is something, again, that you had focused on when you were co-chair at the Social Mobility Commission. And I think what's really interesting is, I would say that Aldermore has probably done as much as literally any business I've come across on tracking socioeconomic background, but going down a process of doing so that's really methodical, and I think probably will be what many companies end up following your footsteps in. But maybe for people who are a bit less familiar with this area, tell them a little bit about why you think that matters, and the work that Johnny Carberry's been leading internally to start getting a handle on that socioeconomic diversity that Aldermore's got.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll put that in 2 examples. One is from my work at the Social Mobility Commission, and some great commissioners there, a great fellow co-chair, and probably more importantly, a really passionate secretariat in the civil service who really do care about this. But all the data we saw there was that the more diverse, the more inclusive businesses, organisations, groups of people, the more balanced it is, you tend to end up with much better outcomes, because it's a much more representative part of society. If you are narrow in any way, you don't get the best outcome because you have a lack of perspective or a lack of experience or a lack of viewpoints. And I've definitely seen that in the business world. I have seen groupthink on more than one occasion because there's been a lack of diversity and inclusion in those groups or teams who are making decisions. And that turns into bad outcomes ultimately for shareholders or society as a whole. So I care deeply about that from a real business need. We've worked hard on making our business more diverse. We had a gender imbalance. We are working hard on that. We are broadly 50-50 now across the organisation,
Mm-hmm.
male or female. In the top two tiers, I set ourselves a target getting to 40% female representation by about now. I will be there or thereabouts. And there is zero compromise on capability, because no one, male or female, in my view, wants to be in a role because of their gender or any other
Mm-hmm.
components in their lives.
Yeah.
And on the social mobility side, which is really reaching out to parts of society who won't naturally fall into financial services because maybe it's scary or there are barriers in place around qualifications and so forth, but great talent there. We've decided to, with your leadership, really to understand the makeup of our own colleague base. So as part of our employee engagement survey, we've asked 4 questions that really help to identify the social background. The first one, the most easiest to understand, is for most people, what are the occupation of the highest earning member of your household when you were the age of 14 or thereabouts. We've had a great response rate to that. 80% of I think 83% of our colleagues have responded to that. So we've got a good understanding of that. We are now working through our own HR processes to ensure how people can constantly update their profile. About a quarter of our people are doing it on a very regular basis. And we have that data, which we're collating at the moment. We'll work out what that means for us as a business. Because we want all walks of life and society in our business, because it makes us a better business with better decisions and a more fun place to be.
And are there any insights, in a sense, that are already coming out from having done that original employee survey, which of course was anonymous in a sense? So you got the company-wide data, and I think what's interesting now is how you use this Count Me In campaign to start really getting that more by person data, so you know exactly where to target. But what were the sort of original insights? How did you find, in a sense, as an executive team, it helped shape the discussion about where you went with all this?
Yeah, so we're still learning from this. It's definitely helped us to shape more our apprenticeship scheme and reach into communities that we weren't in before. There's some amazing talent that comes from there in terms of the energy, the passion, the thinking, and putting that across the broader business. You just get a better level of decision making and appreciation of what's happening in life and society. That's starting to turn into things like how we think about our products and our literature and our language, and how we train, develop and support people. We're pretty good at getting people from more diverse backgrounds into the business. Like many, we are less good at progressing people from different backgrounds through the organisation. Often that comes down to location. Frankly, some of that's around support, confidence giving, an environment where people don't feel, I don't know if embarrassed is the right word or not, but look, it still happens to me in my life. On occasions, I still need to have my grammar or my spelling or my language corrected in terms of when I'm putting a paper together or a presentation to the board, speaking at different places where I speak, because I didn't have that level of education. And it's even now, 35 odd years since I left school, I still feel on occasion that lack of confidence, and we see that in our business. So it's giving people that confidence, and doesn't mean we shouldn't have grammar corrected, for example, but making people feel that's okay. And wanting to learn from that. And so many times it's really the soft skills and support and a metaphorical arm around the shoulder that on those occasions is needed. And we're building our training programs around that as well, and in terms of training people for a new role, but it's in a way that people can receive those messages and not feel awkward about it.
And how have people within Aldermore responded to, this route you've gone down on, effectively social mobility background tracking? Have people sort of seen it in the light of that broader purpose of the business and bought into it?
So it definitely connects with our broader purpose, which makes it easier. In many cases, just we're talking about their friends, their family, the environments in which they live. So in some ways, it's not been difficult. We've been super transparent around it, been very open around it. It's not, I mean, to a certain extent, I guess I've sort of cajoled and led it, but not much, frankly. We've got great, when you mentioned Johnny, but there's a whole team of people who care deeply about this. And one of the things, slightly deviating, but one of the things I'm so proud of being quite an eye-opener for me, actually, is the number of colleague networks we have, which might be around gender or helping people think about being a working parent, or mental health, or sexuality, and so what. Actually, we've had conversations around the menopause and what that does for male and females. Thoughtful about that in the workplace. The real lesson with all of this is be open, have straightforward conversations, learn from each other, help each other, understand what each other is going through. And just, it's amazing when you do that, you find people, you're not alone. There's others who've got similar experiences and you can learn from them.
And I remember, I think that's all right. And I remember doing effectively a sort of virtual town hall webinar with you and with Johnny about the Count Me In campaign and the socioeconomic background tracking in the survey. And I thought what really struck me was how positive people were on the chat. This sense that actually it tied in with anyway what Aldermore's purpose was. But I think people could see how this was important. And actually, I felt like there was also a real willingness to be a bit of a trailblazer for the company and to find out. So I think what's fascinating is people want to be part of that approach on improving social mobility, and it's something pretty much everyone buys into. And this is probably, if you could do one thing as an individual to help make social mobility happen, it's probably answer this question if your employer asks you, because it will help them build a picture that means they can create your organisation to be an engine of social mobility and make sure that's actually happening.
Yes, and you've heard me talk about this many times, but it's a must-do for a business. It is a nice-to-do, but it's a must-do. The amount of talent we've got in our business that come from more disadvantaged backgrounds that we would not have got access to if we put artificial requirements in around qualifications or experience, frankly. Taps more into things like, so what would the person's aptitude, what would they do in a certain situation? What do we get with Justine as the person? Got some great people in our organisation as a result. Survey, very easy to answer. It's 4 simple questions. You have to talk about that as an organisation. Why do you want this information? What will you do with this information? Sharing the outcome of those data surveys and what will happen as a result. And we're working very hard on progressing different people through the organisation. The biggest thing for me is helping people break out of continual low-paid work and putting those people into higher work. They're good. They're earning the right to be there. So it's not about, putting, there's still a meritocracy, but you've got to give people the support, the opportunity, the chance, the confidence. And when that happens, and I think we're performing pretty well in a very difficult environment. It's because of our people. And it's because we get the best people in those opportunities and we develop and we support them. And I definitely get the extra mile in return.
Well, I think that's a brilliant point on which to finish. Stephen Cooper, CBE, Chief Exec of Aldermore Bank. Thanks so much for doing the podcast. It's been brilliant. And good luck with the Count Me In campaign and all of the work that you're doing through that report to society. We're really proud to have you as part of the Purpose Coalition. Thank you very much.
Pleasure. And Justine, thank you as always for your support, your cajoling and in this space. It's much appreciated.
Thank you.